Hi everyone, Therese here. And wow, here we are, almost at the end of July. And it's a hot one. It's getting hot. So I wanted to do some karma cards with you this week, and wow, the messages are, and there's so many messages coming through at this time, and I'm trying to pick the ones I feel like will be the most resonant and helpful for us. So before I do karma cards, I just want to talk about the general message that's coming through at this time. So here we are at the Lion's Stargate. The Lion's Stargate. And it's always, it comes every time, this time of year, as we go into Leo, we go into the Lion's Stargate. And it's a very powerful time of year. And it goes up to the 8/8, right? So August 8th. Is the culmination of this Stargate. And the energy that's coming through in 2020 is incredibly powerful and potent. And so what's coming through at this time is also going to be very powerful and potent healing energy, right? We still have the influence of Sirius near us, and Sirius being a planet that brings through a lot of purifying, healing energy by directing its intense star energy into our sun, and then the sun stepping that down for us and bringing it to the planet, and the planet stepping that down for us so that we can then absorb it ourselves. So you'll always see me bringing through the Schumann resonance. I like to look at the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance is going up today. We were in kind of like a downward quiet cycle, and now we're getting a nice white looking spike coming through. I think the last time I looked, it hit 66 today. So we're going to start feeling that. And the message I got from my team right now is that while we're going through the Lion Stargate here, the Lion's portal, we're going to feel an intensification of energy coming through. And it's going to crack people open. It's going to create a feeling of being cracked wide open. Or in some cases, it could feel like being broken down. So it can either crack you open or it can break you down. So of course, I like to go on the road of let it crack me open. So you want to think about it like this, that the heart is what is being cracked open, right? And the whole point of ascension is coming through our heart. And the more open the heart, the higher the spiritual frequencies can come through. And as those higher spiritual frequencies come through, you know, it sounds wonderful, and it truly is wonderful, but it also has to burn off anything that is not a match. And that can feel like being cracked open. And if we're not in the conscious space of being ready to transmute lower energy in ourselves, it can almost feel like being broken or ripped because we're in resistance, right? Instead of allowing it through, we're sort of like pushing back on it. So the advice my team gives is to surrender to that feeling of being rendered open, reminding us that that is allowing more spiritual light, a higher frequency to come through. And we might be feeling, some of us might be feeling like, I've done this already, I've had enough. But remember, the energies are going to keep ramping. We're not going back energetically to a lower frequency or the frequency we might have been used to. We're going to continue this ramp up into a higher frequency. So it's kind of like we're climbing the mountain right now, and people are waiting for the plateau, but we're not there yet. So the energy keeps ramping, and if we climb the mountain mindfully and slowly, we can adjust to the altitude changes. Remember, so the natural timeline is all about acceptance and adaptation. So if we think about going through this spiritual increase of energy right now as climbing a mountain, you don't really want to climb a mountain super fast. That will give you altitude sickness. We want to allow ourselves to adjust and keep moving up. Allow ourselves to adjust and keep moving up. So I know that this energy can feel intense to us, but you're not climbing the mountain alone. And I want you to remember that as you're adjusting to the new atmosphere, as you're adjusting to the energy, everybody's with you. And to me, that little thought is so powerful, because as we go through the kind of agony of the heart opening more, and there is a little bit of agony, because remember, the agony comes from our own resistance to letting go of what was. And what I mean about that is, for example, as the heart opens, what happens to us is we become more compassionate, more forgiving, and more understanding. So the old parts that want to hold on to grudge or do eye for an eye, those parts, if we're not ready to surrender them and say, this doesn't work here, doesn't work anymore, they're going to be that part will be in resistance to letting go, or it'll want to keep fighting, right? That's where the pain comes from. I hope that makes sense. So part of it is recognizing that the wounded places in us are being cleaned. That's another way of thinking about it. It's like hydrogen peroxide for the soul right now. So all of this beautiful heightened spiritual energy is acting as a cleaning agent on anything that is wounded. And just like hydrogen peroxide hitting an open wound, that sucker is going to burn a little bit, but ultimately it's going to feel better. And ultimately the trade-off is for letting go of a lower or denser way of being is this new heights of reality, new heights of awareness, right? Would you let go of a lower density if it meant that you could achieve a higher level of awareness, higher than what you think is the highest right now? So if we see higher education, for example, or the height of our current philosophy as the highest level of awareness, if you understood that there was something even higher above that, right? A new way of seeing, like stronger eyesight is another kind of metaphor you could think of. If you knew that was there, would you be willing to let go of denser ways of being? Denser meaning, right, like grudges and anger and resentment and blame. These are all lower states of being that we're being asked to move through. And it is a process. Remember, it's not like, look, if I knew I could just drop it and be done, I think a lot of us would be like, I'm dropping it and I'm done. But it's a process. It's like you let it go around a certain area or topic or person, but then more gets shown to you as you let it go. We're being asked to let go of a third density approach to life. We're being asked to let go of reactivity and replace it with responsiveness. But what's interesting is there's a third density sense of justice, and then there are higher densities versions of justice. And you know what I see, and I'll feel it in myself from time to time too, is that the third density's idea of justice still wants to be served. And from that limited and heavier vantage point, it's really hard to see how to move forward. So that's one of the examples of what's being asked to be let go of. Does this mean justice doesn't get served? No, that's not what it means. It means that we have a different idea of how energy resolves itself. I'm going to try to give you an example. So if we were to find out that someone was abusing children, which we're hearing about that a lot, if we were to find this out about a person, we might want, from our third density self, we'd feel enraged, we'd feel betrayal, we would feel like it's time to destroy, right? Destroy. I want this to be destroyed. That might come through that sense of in intolerance in us of this person's behavior. That's like a lower density. It's like we want to destroy something that that we deem as bad, and it is. I don't like it. It's very much upsetting, and I'm having even a hard time putting this into words. A higher density approach to justice is understanding that us getting entangled in it with our own lack of forgiveness, our own judgment, our own unwillingness to have compassion or any kind of understanding keeps us tied karmically to the energy and to the person and to the events, if that makes sense. So what we learn about justice from higher levels of density, from higher fourth and fifth density, is we learn that every action has a reaction. Everything a soul or a being does has to be countered in energy. There will be a counter to that. However, we don't have to karmically tie ourselves to that person by holding contempt. It's like we have to find that place where we can look at it and understand that the process of justice will occur, and we can move through our own feelings about it. It's a very interesting point of like, do I want to be tied to this energetically, and for how long? No, it's not about love, forgiveness, rainbows, and let this person walk the streets. Absolutely not. Justice has to be served. What it is about, though, is trying to understand that by holding the contempt, the anger, the fury in us, that we poison ourselves, right? Whereas if we try to move into a place of what would make a person behave in this way, how broken does this person need to be to try to break others, that allows us to emotionally sort of step back and look at them through a different lens. Because here's the thing, exactly, forgiveness, but we're still connected to them. I mean, and what I mean by that is, instead of emotionally entangled, they're still a part of source. And there's a part of my brain that when I'm in this lovey spiritual vibe, that doesn't want to look at that part. Because looking at that and acknowledging that, suddenly, again, it becomes very third density in the place of looking at them. When I'm looking and I'm like, I'm only one with those of the love and the light. And that's a great feeling. However, I'm not unifying if I'm not looking at everything else that's out there. If source energy is everything and it's everywhere, and I'm part of source, and I reject anything that doesn't match my version of source, then I also still reject source, if that makes sense. It's a bigger concept for us to work through. What is indifference? Is that a lower energy? Indifference is danger. This is a weird, dangerous area, indifference, because there is observation through emotional detachment. Okay, so observation through emotional detachment means I'm looking at it, I'm addressing it, and I'm processing it without becoming entangled with it. And then there is indifference, where it's like, I don't care. That is a lower emotion. So there is like emotional detachment through observing, and that's being impartial, kind of like a judge would have to be, right? Where you sit back, but you observe all information. And I mean, we call it a judge, right? But judgment is actually, it's really weird. The idea of judgment, there's a couple versions of that. We usually end up in the side where we're cutting ourselves off from something rather than assessing something with discernment. And discernment and judgment are not the same thing. So we want to be observant, discerning, and we can also have an emotional step back from it, where we're not becoming entangled in the energy of it. Indifference is almost in my opinion, it means like I don't even care. And when we stop caring, that's not the same as emotional detachment. See, this is where, when we move up in higher frequency, we start to learn the difference of these terminologies, how they're different. I totally hear you. I'm on that same brink with you. It's a very fine line, because one of the things that I am intending here is I'm intending holding space for people to heal. So for me, it's like, it's really hard to bring in my personal opinions about things, because I'm not trying to sway someone to think like me, but I so feel you, because I have that feeling too. There's really more to say here. And on a personal level, I have many feelings about events going on in the world that I'm trying to work through. However, I honor and respect all perspectives. And this is difficult. It is not easy. And I'm telling you that, like, every day it can be a struggle sometimes, but I honor and respect keeping my mind open, which means that I really have to, I know me, I know my vibration, and I know what's a match, but I also hold, honor, love, and respect those who see things differently, which is what I want to help propagate in the world, if that makes sense. Darkness not being evil, but deprived of love and light. Yeah. We're going to learn so much about this. The idea of polarity is something that we get out of when we get out of third density. So as we're moving, we're in fourth now. I know everybody's got a different opinion about where we are. I'm telling you, we're in fourth, and that's what I get, because polarity is so obvious, and at the beginning of fourth is the end of polarity. It's like the final denouement that's happening, where we see the separation and the goal of positive. Remember, fourth density splits. Okay, so we've been sharing densities up until now, and at this point there is a detox of shaking the players apart and looking at sides, but then it splits. And when we go high fourth density, what happens is we have to let go of polarity, which means we move into integration, which is what I'm trying to, I'm attempting to address using current issues while also trying to remain a space that is safe for all opinions. And it's a very difficult task that I've given myself, because it's not easy. It's not easy. When it comes to being deprived of love and light, what I want to do is reiterate the false timeline and the natural timeline. Remember, those who choose the dark, they have turned away from nature, okay, or source, or God. They've cut themselves off from it. When you cut yourself off from the infinite supply, and infinity is just another word for source or God or nature, whatever you want to call it. There's so many names for this energy. When you cut yourself off from an infinite supply, you start to decay. Does that make sense? If you think about it that way, you could think about it as evil, but it's also decay. If the light is bringing in life force energy and you say no, then you're not getting more light. You are decaying. And what this dark group has done to sustain life is to take it, because they refuse to take it from source, which is what we're generally doing. That's what nature does, is it takes in more life force energy from source. When you cut yourself off from source, you start decaying, and that means the mind and the spirit starts to decay, because they've now created finite terms for themselves, and they start stealing it from other living beings, even though all they have to do is turn and accept life force energy, infinity again, like that something is higher than them and connecting them together, right? But those that cut themselves off from nature and go false, they don't want to believe something is above them. You know, at worst, they think they're the pinnacle of everything, and at the best, they just don't feel a connection. And so there's a type of spiritual decay that happens. Now, we call it evil, but as we progress and we understand what evil is, it helps us to soften to that energy. And when we soften to it, when we open our hearts to it, doesn't mean we're bringing it into us. You don't have to do that. And that's something that all empaths have to learn. Anybody who's empathic needs to understand that to soften or open does not mean to absorb. Those are different qualities of being. So it simply means that you refuse to close your heart in the face of evil. Does that make sense? There's a difference between keeping the heart open and absorbing. A lot of people are afraid to open their heart because they're afraid they're going to absorb what they're open to. Open and absorption are so different. So one of my favorite Danielle Laporte quotes is, "Wide open heart, big fucking fence." I want you to remember this. You can change the words if you don't like swearing, and I do apologize if there's young ears around. But I use that because it really kind of just hammers in the point. Wide open heart, big effing fence, right? Because what that means is boundaries. To prevent absorption of an energy is to have an energy boundary. And to have an energy boundary means you know who you are and you are stating the terms of anything that comes into your field. All right? So this again comes back to the ideas of sovereignty. When you understand that you have a seat for your soul. Does anyone remember that Seth book from the 70s, The Seat of the Soul? Right? Seat of the Soul. There's a seat for your soul. And not a lot of people are sitting in their seats. I'll show you where it is. Ready? So here's your crown chakra. And then here's your, like about 5 inches or so, maybe like right about there. That's your causal chakra. This is where like soul contracts and stuff are held right here. Now, a couple more, it's like I can't get down far enough. Like right about here, above you, is your soul star chakra. It's the seat of your soul. So, you know, and what's happening in fourth density and as we move up is this energy up here, the seat of your soul, you start to embody it and it drops in. Right? And at the end of fourth density, this energy completely moves and drops into your heart chakra. And then you're sitting in your heart. You're sitting in your sacred temple. So right now, up here is your soul star. And here's the sad thing. A lot of people don't know that it's there. That doesn't mean you haven't been sitting in your seat. But if someone doesn't recognize that their life is theirs, that they're the energy force creating and attracting things in their life, then they're not in the driver's seat. And you can kind of liken that spot up there to your life's driver's seat. So most people become a passenger in their own life. And that means we're being driven around by something. What drives us around? Well, I think a lot of different drivers, a lot of different things can get in the seat depending on what we're asking to help drive us, right? Whatever our belief system is kind of the driver. And in an era where there's a spiritual battle, which is what we're in, because we're about to bring in the golden age. But right at the end, when the false timeline's ending, they're fighting for it. Whether you believe it or not, they do, and they are fighting for it. And what they're hoping is not enough people are sitting in their driver's seat, which means that we're being driven around by our perspectives, by our current emotional state, by the levels of energy that are being out there. They use this all the time. What happens when you sit in your driver's seat and you say, no, I'm driving this car now, I'm driving this experience, and I say what happens. Well, then now you've got boundaries, right? You've got energetic boundaries here. And this is where you actually have the ability to keep the heart wide open so that you can receive all the spiritual energy and upgrades coming through while maintaining really strong boundaries and saying nothing gets past this, right? Nothing gets past this energy barrier I have created. So it's not about avoiding the dark. You can't. I mean, that's what we've tried, right? Like we tried it. How's that working for us? It's not working. Can't avoid them, right? And the fear is if I open my heart to all of these energies and these experiences, if I acknowledge them, and somehow I'm going to let that in, and that terrifies me. So what do? We close the heart. And again, they're like, great, because that means that you're closing off your own spiritual advancement because it's coming through an open heart. So we need to learn spiritual boundaries. And the first way we do that is we sit in our own seat of our soul. We sit there, we claim the space. This is my life. I am the driving force in my life. I am connected to Source. I am connected to all that is, right? My heart, this is where we use tools like surrender to allow ourselves, like, I want to close here. Show me how to open. Show me how to stay open. This is where we put the energetic field around us. This is where we put the fence around us, and we say nothing that is less than, and then you state the boundaries, right? So here's a boundary that I set. I can say, I want to be made an instrument of peace with no harm to all, meaning that as long as what I'm asking for causes no harm to either myself or others, let it be, right? So there's a boundary. I said no harm to all. That's one. I open my heart with no harm to all, and that includes you, right? Like, I will not be harmed by opening my heart. That's another way you could say that. Although it is, when we're working with words, we want to try and frame it in a positive way. So let's work on how we would state that. The subconscious mind doesn't hear negative, so it doesn't hear no's, don'ts. It just accepts it. So we would want to say, with protection to all, with safety to all, for the safety of all, right? We would say it like that. That would be an even more aligned boundary, because then we are accepting that program into our subconscious mind from a positive reinforcement level. Okay? So again, as we see things happening in the world right now, as energy comes to a head, because a ton of purification is coming through right now, what that looks like is it looks worse before it looks better, right? When the body heals, it scabs before it's totally healed. So usually you get this really gnarly looking crusty lump, right? And that looks worse before it's getting better. But we know now, because we've observed the body so many times, that actually means it's getting better. So we're in a place right now where deep trust and faith that it's getting better should lead our awareness. What we see, what we experience might want to make us shut it down, shut the heart down. And it's going to feel counterintelligent to open it up. But it's the very thing to do right now. It's the thing that creates the most spiritual, what's the word I want? Advancement, by opening the heart, we heal it faster. We heal our experience faster. So we've got to create a safe space to do that in. And that means that we're looking for the boundaries. Where can I find, what do I need to make this safe for me to do? Right? Even if it's like, I need to stop looking at this for a moment to create a sense of personal safety in myself. And then when I give myself that space, I have the opportunity to heal. And from there, I can choose to open back up again, open my heart. I can look at this knowing that I will not absorb it just because my heart is open, because I have really strong effing boundaries, super strong boundaries, right? Remember, we're still under massive retrograde energy, including Pluto. Pluto is in retrograde right now, and this is all the shadow work. All the healers know something big is coming. All the healers feel it coming. And honestly, if you put your hand on your heart for a moment right now, and it is safe to open the heart because I have strong boundaries, right? It's safe to open my heart because I have strong boundaries. And I want you to feel into it and ask yourself, what comes next? Okay, take a moment to ask yourself that through your heart. So to get that heart to activate, You breathe in and out through it. Imagine you have sinuses right there at your heart level. What comes next? You might hear words. You might feel a wave. You might see a picture. The heart can speak in a lot of ways. But all the healers know that something big is coming, and they're preparing for it now. The healers have been called. And what I hear from my own team and from other people is that I hear my team going, enjoy the vacation. And I'm like, what? This does not feel a vacation. And they go, enjoy the vacation, enjoy the break, because what comes next is the time of the healer. All right, so all the healers, you've been called, and you know what's coming, and you know you can handle it too, by the way. So this is not a message of fear or limits. This is a message of like, get ready, because you're about to activate in a way that you might never have imagined. You're going to activate, and it's going to be glorious. Yeah, bring it. Exactly. Bring it. And with that, let's do karma cards. All the healers are like, yeah, let's do this. Okay. So for those who are new to karma cards or haven't played in a while, let me go over this with you. I have 3 decks here. I have the planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And the way that you play is you simply feel into your heart. Yes, exactly. All my healers here are like, yep, you guys are ready. So enjoy the vacation, healers. Enjoy your break. Really, like, allow yourself to take the break. If it's being offered, take it. Okay. All you have to do is feel into your heart and tune in. Do you need action answers right now or outcome? And if you need both, claim both. So while you're deciding that, let me just tell you the flavor of this reading. We've got Pluto, which I just talked about, who's in retrograde, in Aries, which is all about, right, willpower, the self, our personal will. In the 11th house, friends, wishes, community. The 11th house is very much the community house, where we're thinking about how we're connected and what we're trying to bring in. It's actually the house ruled by Aquarius, and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. Those who are choosing action, your spiritual action, thank you, is resurrect your willpower for humanity's sake. Boom! I'm gonna go now. Have a great night. What we were talking about. Resurrect your willpower for humanity's sake. Sit in your seat. Sit in your seat, peoples. Your soul. Sit in the soul seat. Be the driver. Those with great amounts of willpower tend to be sitting in their seat. You don't have to be like a hard-headed, driven, ambitious person to do this. You just simply need to claim your space. It is time. Okay? Mental action at this time. Get to the heart of what you think you know about your hopes and wishes. Get to the heart of what you think you know about your hopes and wishes. I love that it says this. It's like what you think you know. Because, and again, remember, we're leaving completely the 3D concept. It doesn't work anymore, and we feel pain when we go into it. It's immediate pain. It's like, because it's dead, it's done. So when we go back to 3D concepts of what we think we know and want, all we feel is this kind of void feeling of like, this doesn't work, it's done. It's like having a, like they're reminding me of when I lived in New York and you had a Metro card to get through the subways and your card's empty and you keep swiping and it's just denied, denied, denied. And that's what they're showing me when it comes to thinking in a 3D way. It's like your card's getting denied. That's what's causing you pain. So we want to get to the heart of what we think we know about our hopes and wishes. Examine it. Contemplate. What is it you think you want? Is there a higher version of it? Is there more? Did it change? Are you okay with the fact that it's probably changed now? It's adjusted in some way. Are you with that? Are you trying to hold on? More and more, they're asking us to let go and surrender. It's okay to let it go. Something far more amazing than you can imagine is about to step in, okay? Physical action. Do or die. That's Pluto talking. Do or die. You must do it your own way and do it for the future. The do it your own way, that comes from Aries. Do it your own way is talking about sit in your seat. This is your life. You decide. You are the power. Sovereignty is remembering you are the power in your life. Now let's understand, we are the power in our own life. Old 3D concepts, old false timeline thinking is to control the environment. I'm out of control, right? So we try to control others. We try to control circumstances and situations because we feel out of control. That all stops when we take our own seat in our own life and we start claiming our power. This world would change like that if people got this. If we got it on a mass level like that, BS would be over, so much of it, because we would be standing in our own power. Right now, what I see is a bunch of chickens running around trying to control other chickens, and it's not working. It's not going to work. And I think as we each, and it's again, we can't force anybody to do it. You can't get them to do it. That's a control thing, right? We got to do it for ourselves first, and we got to stay in our seat and claim that space. It's going to feel intense, but once you start doing it, you start getting used to it, and it feels really good. And as you feel good, you feel better. You can watch the chickens running around chasing each other, and you're like, I remember when I used to do that, right? Like, you're just like, they'll get it. They'll get it. So right now, it's our job to do it for ourselves. Your spiritual outcome in Pluto and Aries in the 11th house of friends, wishes, and communities. Spiritual outcome. The need for control of energies to meet the challenge of freedom. I had to do my little happy dance in my seat because they're like, they can't make it any plainer. This is like 2020 got stamped all over this reading. The need for control of energies to meet the challenge of freedom. Remember, if it's about control and energy, it's talking about individual, your energy, to meet the challenge of freedom. So we're in a time where we're breaking free from a control grid that we had no idea how tentacled and infiltrated it's been. We have no idea. And those who are looking and watching are like, oh my God, there too? And that place? And those people? Like, we're watching the tentacles. Where some people are looking, right? And they're looking at it and they're seeing the tentacle structure of how it's been wrapped around every area. And it's shocking. And if we had to figure this out on our own, it would be very intimidating. But remember, we're climbing this mountain together. It's an individual journey done as a group. There is no safer time to figure out the challenge of freedom than when we have to do it all together. So it's, again, the individual journey, meaning we work on ourselves, but we're all doing that together. There's no safer time to figure this out, okay? This is as safe as it gets. It might not feel that safe, but it really is. Like, we're blessed, completely blessed here. Okay, mental outcome. An obsession with your desires regarding associations. Okay, so obsessive energy, that's from Pluto. Your desires regarding associations. So associations, another way to say this is perspective, perception of what is happening. Obsession with it. This is where a lot of pain is coming in for people, because we're being cracked open to look at life differently. If we take the invitation, the cracking open to new levels of awareness and spirituality and evolution is here. But you have the choice. You have the choice to see or not. So obsession right now is causing a lot of people to stay locked down and in pain, because it's almost like they're not ready to let go of what they thought they knew. And it's going to be hard to adjust to everything that's coming. We're going to have to practice the open-minded approach that I don't know what I don't know, right? And when we remember the saying goes, the wise man knows he knows nothing. The fool thinks he knows everything. So we've got to be in a place of self-observation. Am I standing here thinking I know everything, closed mind? Or can I open my mind that this is what I think I see, but I'm open to seeing more? This is a period right now, again, we're going through that Lion's Gate, so the intensity of energy might intensify obsession for some. And definitely the security blanket of what I thought I knew is going to be a really strong pull for people. I don't want to let this go because this is what I think I know. And as we hold on, we restrict, our energy is restrictive, and we feel pain. And anytime we can surrender and open up, and the pain starts to dissolve, okay? All right, and the physical outcome at this time, a power struggle resulting from the honesty and strength of your circle and friends. We're already feeling this one. A lot of people feel this one. Resulting from the honesty and strength of your circle of friends. I've heard lots of stories about people having their inner circle sort of cleaned out, right? And not necessarily, so the ones who want to keep their minds open and be flexible and adapt are holding space. Those who want to close it down and hold on to a rigid belief system are cutting others out. So those who are moving in the adaptable mode are moving in evolution, right? They recognize things are changing. It's a lot of this is out of my control. My perception's in my control, and how I respond or react is in my control. And as they hold that awareness, they get the gift of compassion, because they see that reflected in others. The people that are holding on to a really tight grip of a mindset are the ones that are really they're kind of striking out and lashing out at people because they've got a really fixed mindset about what's happening to them. And again, this is where taking the high road sometimes sucks, and sometimes the high road really sucks because we want to be understood. We want to be heard, right? And we're willing to understand and hear others. And what happens is that doesn't, just because you're willing to give it doesn't mean it'll be reciprocated. Does that mean you should close your heart? Should you shut it down? Should you turn them off? Should you shut them out? You probably already know the answer there. Closing your heart isn't going to help. You opening your heart doesn't guarantee that somebody else will open theirs. And at this point, all you have to do is trust that it's not about telling someone how to behave. It's about leading by example and doing your own work. Sit in your own seat. I think a lot of the healers present know that there's going to be a big boomerang come around, right? Where people are going to be like, F you, F this, F everything you think. And they're going to go away, and then they're going to snap back. And we can't hold our breath for that, right? But I think that a lot of people in places of healing, they're like, I know that's going to happen, and they're holding space for that as well. But again, it's always about do your own work. This is your life. You're in the driver's seat. You're in charge of your experience. Do your own work and trust other people. And I just want to leave with, there's a song lyric that's been stuck in my head on a loop, just part of it. Does anyone else get that, where you're like guides or your energy, you get a song, like a loop, a piece of a song stuck in your head, and it just plays on a loop until you can resolve it? So the song lyric that's stuck in my head right now, the words are, love is the answer. Makes no difference what you have heard. Love is the answer. You have got to trust in the world. That last part, you've got to trust in the world. That it hits me in my heart every time, and I just like, the tears start to come, because I too am working on this, right? I'm not always open to that idea. I'm not always open to trusting in the world. Sometimes I watch what the world does and I'm like, no, like no, you've lost, you don't get it. And I feel that lower energy, that pain. The open heart holds this space for that trust while maintaining a boundary and a place of it might not happen, right? So I'm not holding an expectation, I'm holding this space. And that's, again, those are two different ways of holding energy, holding space or expectation. I hope the information I brought through has given you something to work with and help you know how much you are deeply appreciated. I deeply, deeply appreciate you. So do others. Thank you for being on this journey with me. Thank you for climbing the mountain. I'm so glad you are here. I would never want to do this alone. So I feel so honored, and I just want you to know how much I really love you. I love you. And to those who might not get it, I love you too. I love you. So with that, mwah. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.